Okay, so we're going to have a look at a video here that, any second now, okay, is going to look at the factorization quiz that you did recently. And I'm going to go through each question very quickly and then show you some feedback on some solutions and some errors that are typically being made. There's the first question, 27b minus 3a squared b, and everybody got this right, okay, which is really good. Now just be careful that although I marked this correct, 3b, 3 goes into 27 and 3, and there was a b there and it's left this thing here. Rightly, what you should have then done is identify that this thing here is a square minus a square, and so the full and correct answer to this thing is 3b outside of, and it's a difference of two squares, so it's 3 minus a, 3 plus a. And that's what you'd be expected to do in an examination, identify that this thing here is the difference of two squares. So there's two steps, the highest common factor and then that as well. The second question was done, I think, without fail. Everybody recognised that the product of 12 that adds a 13 is 12 and 1, so there's no problems there. Let's move this up a bit. Now the next question was this one, looking at this factorization. Now what you should be doing, and I'm seeing a lot of laziness in this question and also some people who are just still not 100% sure. So our method that we're using here is to grab the 4d squared and put 4d in two sets of brackets and put it over 4. And I want to see this first line, even if you leave these things blank. Okay, that just gives you some structure to answer this sort of question. Okay, now because that's a 4 there, we'd multiply the 3 by 4 to get 12. So then the question is, what are the factors of 12 that add to give this number here, 8 and 6 and 2? Now, not many people got this, but there's still plenty of people who are confused and plenty of people who are making mistakes because they don't include the denominator. So it's a bit of laziness. So let's move this box down a bit and have a look. Now, of course, what you do next is you factorize the highest common factor out of here. There's a 2 highest common factor and there's a 2 highest common factor here. So there's my 2 highest common factor, 2 highest common factor. And of course, we always want to make sure that this gets cancelled. So 2 2's are 4 and 4 over 4 is 1, just leaving us with this bit here. So it was done reasonably well, but make sure you use the scaffold, use the method that's going to hopefully make it easiest for you. Okay, straight on. Here is for, let's just look at this one first. This was mostly done okay, question 4. I would say most people are getting this bit right. Okay, we identified that we've got to work in pairs. If there's 4 terms, then you have to work it in pairs. Now, I'll show you an example later of someone who's done a nice job. Now, don't forget, let's get this working. This bit here and this bit here are the same number, right? So I could pretend that's like an m, and I showed you this in class. And if I've got 3a and m and a 4b and m, then the m comes out. Now the m is not just plain old m, it's one of these things, but it's in brackets, so just pull it out. Now once we pull out the m and the m, what are we left with? Well, we're left with a 3a and a plus and a 4b, and that's where this bracket comes from. Okay, now if you think about expanding the bracket, just to be sure, 5c times this bracket, I'm sorry, yeah, well that's the way you could do it, but 3a times this bracket gives that, and 4b times this bracket gives that. So you can check it and make sure it works backwards and forwards. Okay, but think about it in terms of these brackets are one big number which can be factorized outside. Okay, let's have a look at the last bit. And this is question 5. Now, understandably, it's a complex question, and a few problems arise with this. I'm going to cover this up and work it a bit at a time. Now, first of all, I've suggested that for a complex question like this, you work with the numerator first and the denominator separately, and then you can figure it out like that. Okay, the numerator has two steps though, and a lot of people miss this. There's the numerator, 2 outside of m squared minus 25, and that, just like question 1, is a difference of 2 squares, so you've got to get the 2 squares out there. And there's what the numerator will look like, 2 outside of m minus 5m plus 5. Okay, now let's have a look at the denominator bit. And again, if this is just a matter of, okay, looking at this, put 3m's and the 3 here, a load of people, when they considered, this thing changes to 30, which is correct, loads of people had 10 times 3 because they see that 13. But now that, of course, that should be a minus, which is what I did. I did that down here, but that should be a minus. 10 and 3 to get a negative. So I'll just change that. But to get the negative, you can't use 10 and 3. And you just weren't careful enough when you thought about that. And the answer is there's a 15 and a negative 2, because the product of that is negative, and the sum of that is positive 13. Okay, and there's what we end up with the denominator. Now, here's a really important part you need to consider. This is when we glue this back together. Okay, so there's our numerator and there's our denominator. What you have to look for is that there has to be something in the top that will cancel with something in the bottom. So if you leave this just like that, well, you're not going to be able to cancel anything with those two things. Do you see this m plus 5? That's what you really have to get. If you don't cancel anything, you've made a mistake. You haven't factorized it properly. Okay, and so when we do factorize it, we go, oh, that's and that are both in the top and the bottom, and we're left with just this here. And this one was the most difficult one, because there's a number of steps, of course, you have to get right, both that and that. And the people who got it right most often just set it out very neatly and thoroughly. I'm going to spend 2 minutes now just having a look through a couple of other examples from student work. I'm going to come back to that one. I'm going to do this in a different order. Okay, it's a little bit fuzzy, but this person here, this is question 4, did this really nicely. See, they've sort of said, okay, here's a pair and here's a pair. So 15AC, they got this bit right, and they factorized it right, and they factorized that right. Now, from there, put it back together. Now, what do I mean? Well, now that you've figured out this bit and this bit, so you write it 3A outside of 5C, sorry about the writing, minus 3D, put a plus there, and then you get the next bit, which was 4B outside of 5C minus 3D. Now, again, when you're factorizing these things, we always want a bracket and a bracket to be the same, otherwise it's not going to factorize for you. And you've seen the solution. So the only problem this person made was, instead of putting them back together, then they expanded it and got back to the question, which isn't the right way to do it. Just some examples of errors made in question 5. Here's this problem where 10 times 3, positive 10 times negative 3 is negative 30. That's what they were aiming for. But 10 minus 3 is positive 7. It doesn't add to 13. And what I was saying was, you see what they end up with. See, they've done this bit correctly. They identified both the highest common factor and the difference of 2 squares. But here, they've got numerator, denominator. See how nothing cancels? None of these brackets are common to the top and bottom. That definitely, it 99.9% means you've done something wrong, because we always want to cancel at least one of those pairs of brackets, probably two of the pairs of brackets sometimes. Okay, so if you get to this sort of answer, you've definitely done something wrong. Make sure you check your factors. Okay, always do your multiplication and your addition to see if you get back to that step there. Okay, last one. Here's another example where this person has split them, like so. Here's, look, nice working. We can see exactly what's going on. There's, you're taking 2 as a highest common factor, but didn't go on to put the difference of 2 squares there. All of this is beautiful, right? This is really good work, nice and clear. And again, this person then gets down to the bottom and says, okay, so it's m squared minus 25 over that and that. But you see again, if I don't cancel anything, then the question probably would not have asked you to simplify and factorize. So now you know that that would expand and cancel out with that term. But again, if you don't factorize something in a question like this, then you've made a mistake somewhere along the way. Overall, pretty good. If we go back to slide 1, so that's, whoops, let me just see if I can push that in there, get rid of that. There's the solutions if you want to have another look before you finish. Overall, pretty well done. Just be careful of this sort of thing and difference of 2 squares.